Hello all, this is Halloween, and if you enjoy cemeteries and learning about the history of cemeteries as much as I do, you may want to subscribe because I'm going to be taking you somewhere new every week. Today we are in Savannah, Georgia, and I'll be taking you to the Colonial Park Cemetery. This is a notable historic cemetery. If you're a fan of Savannah and historic cemeteries, for the next couple weeks, I will have a lot of material for you. We're gonna go check this cemetery out. Enjoy. We're here at Colonial Park Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. Established in 1750. Gonna go in and see what we can see. I'm gonna read this sign. Cemetery hours 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. It says, please leash all pets. So I'll grab the leash from my husband and we'll be on our way. There's a lot of historic markers to read here. So it says, in this cemetery, many victims of the Great Yellow Fever epidemic of 1820 were buried. Nearly 700 Savannahans died that year, including 2 local physicians who lost their lives caring for the stricken. Several epidemics followed. In 1854, the Savannah Benevolent Association was organized to aid the families of the fever victims. Now, as you know, when yellow fever victims were buried, they were buried in basically a mass grave and unmarked. So a lot of these open areas in this cemetery would probably be maybe some of the areas where these victims were laid to rest. It's a beautiful cemetery. I'm going to take a lot of photos. It's 435. It's not huge though. It's similar to the size of Oaklawn Cemetery in Ybor City, so I think we can get through it. There are a lot of historic markers that I would like to read and just a lot of photos to take. You see these very old headstones. Incredible. The fact that they have these makes my job a lot easier. So right here, Georgia's first newspaper publisher and printer, James Johnston. Here repose the remains of James Johnston, 1738 to 1808, editor of Georgia's first newspaper. A native of Scotland, Johnston settled at Savannah in 1761. Recommended as a person regularly bred to and well, they have a lot of big spaces in between their words, so to and well skilled in the art and mystery of printing. He was appointed public printer of the province by legislative act during the following year. The first issue of the Georgia Gazette appeared at Savannah on April 7, 1763, and with some interruptions, publication continued until 1802. In the American Revolution, Johnston sympathized with the royal government and, in his words, refused to admit to his paper any of the seditious publications when circulating through the different provinces. He closed his printing press in February 1776. When British rule was restored in 1779, he returned to Savannah and resumed publication of the newspaper under the title Morrow Georgia Gazette. A good man and skilled printer, Johnston did not lose the respect of the patriots after the Revolution. He was permitted to return in 1783. He began publishing again under the style Gazette of the State of Georgia, and he died in his 70th year, October 4th, same day as Janis Joplin, years later. But October 4th, 1808. Here we have Duelist's Grave. The epitaph to James Wilde on the nearby tomb is a melancholy reminder of the days of dueling, and particularly of a tragic affair of honor fought January 16, 1815 on the Carolina side of the river near Savannah. Lieutenant Wilde was shot through the heart in a fourth exchange of fire by Captain Roswell P. Johnson, referred to in the epitaph in bitterness as a man who a short time before would have been friendless. But for him, the duelists were officers in the 8th Regiment REGT U.S. Infantry. The nature of their quarrel is unknown. Richard and Henry Wilde, the poet and statesman, was the brother of the young officer. Lieutenant Wilde had served in the campaign against the Seminoles, and his vivid descriptions of Florida suggested to the poet an epic poem which, like the life of James Wilde, was cut short by the fatal bullet. The unfinished poem is remembered for the beauty of a single lyric, the opening stanza of which is, "My life is like the summer rose that opens to the morning sky, but ere the shades of evening close, is scattered on the ground to die." And here is their graves. Now, this cemetery is so old that you cannot even read most of the headstones in here, and you can just see how thin they are. That they've survived this long is awesome. Some of them I've seen that are broken, but see, this one here is broken. You can see where it kind of broke off. Those thin headstones just don't, well, I don't know. That piece there looks thinner, so this could be part of or a whole headstone, and that be a broken headstone with parts of it gone. You can see how you just can't read any of these headstones. The script has been completely worn away by weather and just natural elements. And there's a lot to see here, but also not that much to see, because, like I said, most of the script from the tombstones have worn off. But if you like to just stroll through the cemetery and just be you see this one, for example, you just can't read any of the script on there. You know, it's so old. And but there are a lot of historic markers, which is really cool, so you can read about the departed, and a lot of really important people buried in this cemetery. So if you love history and you love going to old cemeteries, and like I'm saying, like learning about the history and all of that, there's so much to read about here. I couldn't even begin to read all of the historic markers, but right here where I'm walking is most likely yellow fever burials. There's literally nothing here, but there's a lot here, if you know what I mean. I'm not really walking atop of it, I'm walking along the side of it, just so that you can see how much open space there is here. That's not really open space. I believe along the fence here are tombs or memorials. Not really tombs. Tombstones, though. And memorials that have been displaced for whatever reason. Just because they're old, the elements got to them. You know, just whatever the case may be. But these are displaced headstones of the departed that have just been kind of placed along the fence here, so that they're not, you know, lost forever. You know, it's kind of a way to still preserve them and preserve the history of the cemetery, so that they don't get damaged any further, basically. And this whole wall is dedicated to that. So these are other people that are buried here. John Egerty, I'll read the names that I can. There's a baker here. Can't remember. I can't read the first name. It's really hard to read them because they're so old. But it's very cool. It's cool that and there you can see, if I zoom in here, you can see that they're held on here too, so that they don't go anywhere. They're held on by these, looks like an Allen wrench, like a big Allen wrench, but I know it's not an Allen wrench. It's like just a piece of metal. They're bolted onto the wall here so they don't get damaged any further. That's just like a really unique thing that I haven't seen in any other cemeteries yet. Here's an Eliza Hill. 36 years. Age 36 years. And she passed. So, a lot of young people. This one, 29 years old. That was an Andrew Clark. Gustavus Abolis, aged 42 years. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of young people. Back then, due to yellow fever and other ailments that would occur at that time, we didn't have the medicine or the technology to keep them alive any further. You got sick, that was probably about it, you know. So a lot of people in this cemetery died young for that reason. We just didn't have the advances in medicine that we have today. And I just think this is a really cool way to make sure that these headstones remain intact. So as you saw through the cemetery, it's kind of wide open. There's kind of like headstones here and there, but now we know why. A lot of them have fallen over time, and they just placed them over here on this memorial wall that they've created, which is really cool, and it looks awesome. Kind of want a wall like this at my house, but you know, but no, it looks really cool. This is the monument for Button Guinnett. And we're going to read about him. This memorial to Button Guinnett, born 1735, died 1777. Georgia signer of the Declaration of Independence, President of Georgia, whose remains, buried in the cemetery, are believed to lie entombed hereunder, was erected by the Savannah Chatham County Historic Site and Monument Commission, with monies contributed by the state of Georgia, the city of Savannah, and by the Georgia Societies of the Sons of the Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution, Society of Colonial Wars, and Colonial Dames of America. And this beautiful monument was erected in 1964. And there's a replica of his signature, his exact signature. What a name, Button. I bet he was cute as a button when he was little. That's pretty cool. It says his remains are believed to be here. That's kind of odd, though, you know. I'm wondering if... I don't know. I'll have to read about him a little bit more, but as you can see, the cemetery has lots and lots of historic markers to read when you're in here. I read a couple of them. I didn't want to bore you with all of them, you know, because there are so many, but it's a really cool historic cemetery and a lot of very important people buried here. Mostly war heroes and things like that. So yeah, definitely come and check this cemetery out if you're in the Savannah area. Especially if you love history, war heroes, veterans, things like that. This is a good one to come and visit. They're kicking us out of here for the day. I may try to come on a different day and read some of these signs. However, that does it for today. I'll see you at the next one. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I hope you loved today's episode. Like I said, there's going to be a couple more coming from Savannah, so be sure you check that out. And if you haven't already, please remember to like, subscribe, and share the video. I'll see you next time.